Sorry,
wow.
Ted. I was trying to mute myself before answering the phone and I didn't make it in time.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're ready to go. And now that Leslie's here, we can get.
Sure can hear a lot of stuff in my purse, so I guess it's working.
So first up, we have the public hearing.
Hang on,
And-
are you calling this to order?
Well, I'm calling it public hearing to order, I guess.
Okay,
Or-
let me start recording then. Sorry.
I thought you already did that.
No, that was Ted's recording.
Oh,
Okay, you're good.
okay. So the first public hearing has been canceled because the legal notice did not include all the information required. So we'll have to reschedule it. But the other one is still on. That was on the Cannabis Retail Local Law. And the board would be happy to hear from anyone who would like to comment on it. Is there anyone here, either in person or in the Zoom audience, who would like to say anything about it? There you go, Ted.
There we go. I guess I've got a very brief comment. I think it's really too bad that we, the town board, felt that it was necessary to allow cannabis sales in Danby. Got to tell the truth, I'm not singling out cannabis. I am very pleased that there are no alcohol sales and no bars and no tobacco places either. I hope that the zoning will take into account the fact that we will now have hungry cannabis smokers cruising town looking for munchies with no munchies available in town. Other than that, you've got to continue on the path you're on. Thank you.
Interesting question. I wonder whether any cannabis sales facility would have munchies to go with whatever it is.
To serve alcohol, you have to have food, right?
Yes, that's right. But
Maybe they'll do the same thing. I don't know. But it's not a consumption site anyway, right? Well, the consumption and retail.
yeah. Which begs the question, I think, if it's not a consumption sale, then why do we worry about fumes?
The
Why-
fumes
why-
requirement is for,
Maybe you can speak to that, David.
But
yeah, the fumes regulations are for on-site consumption.
we're not understanding. No, we're not.
I'm not-
Can't hear you, Dave.
We're having trouble hearing you now.
Oh, well, it was fine 5 seconds ago.
Yes.
Let's see, just my settings, okay. The fume regulations apply specifically to on-site consumption.
I heard apply specifically to what?
On-site consumption.
Yeah, right. So, so your comment was that we're not allowing on-site consumption?
Yeah.
No,
Is that
I
correct?
think that it was just, I think what's being happened, Ted, my understanding is Ted said, it's too bad that if we're gonna have people running around high on cannabis, and they'll be looking around for something to eat, there's no place to buy it. And Leslie's comment was simply the one that's common with, if during pandemic especially, if you served any kind of alcohol, they had to serve snacks. It wasn't, I don't think it was anything more than a comment.
But my question was, if we're not permitting on-site consumption, then why are we regulating fumes?
Fumes.
We are permitting on-site consumption.
Yeah, we didn't eliminate that.
We didn't
Well,
eliminate anything.
Right,
Okay, so it's not that we're prohibiting on-site consumption.
Right,
right.
It's not just sales.
right,
Okay, that makes more sense.
right.
Any other comments from public? Hearing none, why don't we close the public hearing and move on to the regular meetings, which I now call to order. It's 6:07. There are several additions to the agenda, and at least one deletion. Should we put this at the end?
Yes.
Additions? There any, so let's get into it. Privilege of the floor. Anyone who would like to address the board on any subject? Marty? I believe this is off. So you have to turn it on. Up is on. Yeah, good.
I'm beginning to feel like a regular.
Wait,
I'm really here as a follow-up to the last meeting I attended in person, which is about cybersecurity. I realized that I believe you'll be dealing with this later on in the agenda, but I'm here to say, one, local government work is important. You do an important function, the employees do an important function, and you have to respect that function by providing the highest level of cybersecurity that's available. And I was, as somebody who really, because you all know I don't have the internet, I don't know much about the internet, but I was very impressed with the presentation that I heard being, well articulated and kind of, terrifying, the costs that we could all incur if someone inadvertently opens a wrong email. And, I absolutely confident all of our employees are very well intended, but I know that sometimes when I'm in the rush, I try to answer my TV remote. Doesn't work. And the point of that is that in stressful situations, which working for a government can definitely be, because I've done it, I did it for most of my career. I think it, and I'm also the biggest curmudgeon about taxes. That's another thing I'm always here to, but this is an investment. It's an investment in the work that you do. It's out of respect for the employees that you employ. And this curmudgeon wants to speak in favor of going with, a high level of cybersecurity for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Rhonda?
I just wanted to say a couple of small things. And one of them is I like the view, this is for Janice probably. I like the view of the header on the agenda that I see. And it starts off with the date and then says Town Board Agenda. And then it's evidently the person who submitted the agenda. It has Joel's name. And then it says updated on yesterday at 8:25 p.m. and then shows that it's had 36 views. I like all those little details. And so I like having that there on the top of my agenda. The other thing that I want to say is that I have found out through more research than you would ever imagine that South Danby Road became a county road on December 20th, 1932.
Ah,
And if someday you want to give me more than 3 minutes, I'd be happy to explain to you the whole highway system from the very beginning, when I think it was probably Alexander Hamilton who initiated the first highway law in 1801, going all the way on until 1936, when we got our modern highway law. There you go. Thank you.
an impressive amount of research.
It was. There is no doubt about it. Days.
Anyone else would like to comment? Go to the floor. Don't see anyone. Okay.
Ted.
Was there any correspondence?
Ted,
Oh, wait, Ted got his hand up?
I do
Ted,
indeed.
go ahead.
Sure. Couple items. First one, I took a quick look at the minutes of January 3rd that are on your agenda for approval. And I don't know if it was my unclear words or an error in understanding, but I did not say what it says there. What I did say is that Zoho I didn't say that they enabled third-party cookies. I say they now require third-party cookies. And since a typical security conscious user would not allow third-party cookies, therefore the town website became unusable unless you allow the third-party cookies. Just a correction, you can put it in the record for this time around. I notice your item, again, you have a question mark on the item, whether it's worth replacing an elected clerk with an appointed one. And I don't believe that that would be a step forward. I'll just leave it at that. If you want details, I'll be glad to chime in during your discussion. And finally, a comment about the presentation about security that you had last time. I do know a little bit about the internet and about computer security and such things. And the presentation that you heard was designed to appeal to somebody who knows very little about either. It's what's known in the trade as fear, uncertainty, and doubt, where a lot of information about everything that can go wrong is presented in order to scare you. The presentation was pretty much devoid of saying they would deliver anything. I assume from what I heard that they're talking training, but frankly, if that's what you make your decision on, I think you're doing a disservice to the town and the public. If you have information that was not presented during the presentation, please make it available to the public for comment. It's also worth just chiming in on something that Marnie said. You know, she's absolutely right. It is quite reasonable for even the most careful and well-trained person to make a mistake when they're reading your email. And that means that you can't count on training and preparation to protect you. You need to have something which stands in between, and therefore there has to be something in the nature of hardware or software that will protect you. So I think Marnie was perfectly correct there, but it goes beyond that. I don't see any specification for such a thing. And I guess that's about it. I hope you consider other vendors, because what I heard was not, it may not be what they are, but what I heard during the meeting did not sound like a vendor that I'd want to be dealing with personally, and I do deal with this sort of issue.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, yes, one last point. If you want a solution which will cost you very little to protect you from the internet, I suggest you disconnect the town from the internet and leave only those parts of it which are intended to be on the internet, would be the website on the internet. Everything else, just pull the cable and you're protected. I know there are problems with that, but it is a solution.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, now moving on. Was there any correspondence, Janice?
No.
Okay. And as far as I know, there's no announcements either.
None that I know of.
I can make a quick one.
Okay, sure.
We had, Tio Aceto has been here working on the gate for the fence around the monument out front. And it has an absolutely lovely now gate that he designed and completed with welding and all the blacksmithing that he knows how to do, etc. And we will have the Taps Across America in May again, so it will be nice because some of the festivities will be able to be safely inside the gate.
Mhm.
So take a look sometime. It still needs a couple of little finishes, but it's very nice.
You got thumbs up from Rhonda. I took a look at it. It looks nice.
Yeah, it's really nice, yeah. I see David's hand up.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a question about TAPS. The county person who's the head of Veteran Services would be very interested in an invite.
Oh, to the
as
task
soon
or
as- Yes, as soon as you know the date.
wait, do we know the date?
Yes, it's always on it's
Memorial
according
Day.
to, no, it's on the 30th.
Is it 30? Oh,
Right,
is it
it's on the
traditional-
30th, traditionally, that's
traditional
when it is.
Decoration Day.
Whatever day that is, it's on the 30th. And I think it's traditionally, it's on at 1 p.m. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it's 1 p.m. on the 30th every year.
Mhm. We should put it on our agenda to,
Yeah,
So
it
you're
needs to
gonna-
go on the calendar and we'll put
Yeah.
it, it'll be in the newsletter for May too.
Yeah.
That would be great to have it on the calendar. And David, I didn't really get who you said, so if you can send a little email, that would be great too, thanks.
maybe we should just deal with that now.
What's up now?
Authorizing the use of the town property for the Taps Across America event.
Hasn't been announced and there's no rush. Just put it on the next agenda for the next meeting.
I think that, are you saying we need to authorize it? Then,
We did it last year, but
Did?
but it wasn't, was it intended in perpetuity authorization? Or
They come inside?
what?
no, then,
No,
No,
it's outside.
okay.
You're saying that you don't need an authorization to have an outside event?
That's what I thought. But, I mean, we can just approve or not approve. It's worth making it official. There's no rush. We can do it at the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Add it to the next agenda. Mm-hmm.
good, that'll make a reminder again.
Mm-hmm.
It came off okay last time.
Yeah, it was very nice, and I'm hoping to figure out a way to get the traffic slowed down. I've had a few suggestions made, but it's not a very long service, and to have just something to slow. In fact, somebody said just have the fire engine out parked at the park. It
Lights
might work.
flashing, yeah.
Just to slow it down, so because we can't hear. That's one thing. It's very hard to hear the people. And the other thing is, if people did slow down, they might actually come in because it's pretty interesting. So.
Did the clerk's report get done?
Did not. Too many
Okay.
interruptions.
You'll put out next time. Steve has submitted his code officer's report. And we'll see how it goes, having David report.
All right, I'm trying audio through the phone. Hope that it's better. I have a simple report for April because in March, both the planning board and the BZA meetings were canceled because we didn't have applications ready. So we had a fairly quiet month. I am preparing for a vacation. I will be away all of next week and half of the following week. Things that I'm wrapping up before that are hiring a consultant for grant writing. Joel and I have reviewed the responses to our RFQ and narrowed it down to the final choice, but we are still checking references and we'll be working on finalizing a contract soon. We also expect a draft wastewater hamlet report within the next few weeks from Hunt. We've seen an early version of that and expect to have something shareable very soon. Probably this month at the next meeting, or after that, we will be getting the first round of homes in the rehab program as well. Imminent tonight, you're seeing the result of work with the Danby Community Park Association on a grant that will fund some portable raised walkways for when it's very wet on some of the trails. If you have questions about that, you can ask them now or when we get to it on the agenda.
Why don't we deal with it when we get
Curious.
to it? Yeah.
Is the sound better this way than it was before?
Yes.
All right. Any questions for me?
There will be, but by and by.
Okay.
Not on what you've said so far. Okay.
The other thing I left off that's also on the agenda is that Leslie and I met and went over the survey, and I did put on the survey where we left it, but we weren't necessarily done with it. So
Right. I did remark that what you linked to, Steve, is not the same thing.
No, it's the same, he's linked to the very first version.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Not the most revised version. Yeah. Right. Okay, thanks. Meeting minutes. I noticed when I reviewed them, which I confess I didn't get to until today, that the text for 3 of the resolutions is missing. 4, 5, and I forget the other one. And unless Janice had a chance to add those, the minutes are incomplete without them.
There's also an incomplete sentence on 3.1.2 and the numbering is off.
Yeah, I fixed that, but I couldn't fix the absence of text.
All of the numbers all the way through. And did you reverse 5.1 and 5.2? They're in the wrong order.
I don't remember.
Sometimes they're in the wrong order because they are in the order of appearance on the agenda and then you discuss them out of order.
On my agenda, they were in the other order. And the numbers, the resolution number would be out of order the way they're written. So in my agenda and my notes, they were in the other order than what's on the agenda. So resolution 4 came before resolution 5.
Which is to say they're correctly numbered, but they're
No.
in the wrong order in the minutes.
In the wrong order in the minute.
Yeah.
4.2 is resolution 4, 4.1 is resolution 5. And my notes that I took at the meetings have them in the other order.
My notes were unclear. So
My notes had them in the other order, and this matches the agenda.
Okay.
Other order matches the
Yeah,
agenda.
all right, you're probably right. So, I'm guessing, Janice, you didn't get a chance to add the text, right? Or,
No,
yeah, so we probably should wait.
Yep, till they're complete. And what were the, to add the text?
Well, both 4 and 5, just all the minutes have, it's just the result of the vote, but nothing about what the vote was on.
Okay.
And the other one was one on the, when we adopted the code. There's no, there's resolutions there, but the text of the resolution is missing there too. No.
Right.
So for complete record, they ought to be there as in minutes.
I may be wrong, did we also do the grievance procedure? That should be there too.
Is that one missing too?
I didn't, I mean, if nothing else, I mean, we used to have it. If we're not approving them, we need to check. I'll check my notes because I don't remember looking for that explicitly. But I did go back and check my notes with these, so If we're not approving it tonight, we need to check that out.
47, it says resolution 47 to adopt local law,
Is your mic on?
code enforcement, law and regulations, what that is. Anyway, it would be good
We need
to
to
have
check
those
that.
even attached, even if they aren't in the,
Yes, right,
you know,
right,
so,
yeah. So that they occur with the minutes.
right.
That was kind of my point too.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I'll have to postpone that, give Janice a chance to make those additions and move things around. We still don't have, was it December 6th?
We're missing several.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Actually, don't we have them all except for,
No,
That
we're missing about 4. And then everything from this year except the first one, which was January, the 1st January. So we're missing 2nd January, both March, both February. And then we're missing about 4 before that. I wrote them down, but I don't have it with me.
is that right, Janice? You don't have them in the draft form?
We got them in draft form, but we didn't approve them.
We haven't approved them, right, but they're awaiting approval, but they've been
They
drafted.
haven't, several of them were incomplete and had to be finished before we do them. So no, we
Yes.
don't have them all complete, no.
No, okay.
And
I
have
don't know.
told
Pat's
them-
answering for me, so whatever she says goes.
So what Pat said was that there's some incompleteness in all of them that would,
Or at least one of them.
Oh, first it was all of them, but now it's at least one of them. I don't know because I haven't actually been able to look. I do know that all of them are viewable in their respective folders, except for possibly one, which I said to you today, Joel. So January 3rd, January 18th, February 7th, February 23rd, March 7th, March 22nd, the March 29th, the special board meeting last week for the IT discussion is still in draft form and therefore not viewable. And if we go back to 2022, the December 21st meeting is viewable. The December 6th meeting is not, and every other one in 2022 then will be viewable.
And we need them on the minutes because we need them on the agenda because the agenda is not just for the board members, it's for the public. So if they're going.
All of those are posted on the website. You can view them on the website if you refuse to look. at
On the
Google Drive.
agenda.
But only if we're
On
gonna
the
talk about
agenda.
them, right?
we can link them to the agenda for the next meeting, so people have a chance to look at them, but.
Yeah,
But it wasn't that point.
they have been at one time or another,
They have been, right. They didn't automatically recur.
right?
And I guess there wasn't much point in putting them on if we
Right.
weren't willing to act on them yet.
Right.
And the hangup is the December 6th.
Yeah.
Waiting for that one is pulling everything else hostage, so to speak. So if you could get those December 6th ones finished, we could probably undo the log jam
Well,
and put the others on. And if there are changes to be made, it would be good to bring them to Janice's attention so she can make the changes before we have them on the agenda. Okay, so that brings us to the warrants. Are we ready to approve? There was a couple of questions, weren't there? You know?
Okay, well, I'm not sure about, the credit card
Credit
bill,
card.
but that's not even, the total isn't included in this, so I'll move the general fund vouchers 113 through 125 for $6,974.51.
I think we should explicitly say that we're excluding 117 and 118
Yeah,
because they're
well,
on here on the list.
the numbers are there, there's no totals there.
I know,
yeah.
but we should explicitly say we're excluding them.
117 and 18.
Yeah, because there's nothing there anyway.
All right.
So the motion is to approve excluding 117 and 118.
Yeah,
Any discussion? I guess the discussion should include what do we need in order to get those dealt with.
I don't know. Laura, I think, was looking into it more
Oh, okay.
carefully, so
Yeah.
she should have it by next week.
Okay.
Meeting.
Next week. Okay. You realize that you were doing that, Laura?
She's quitting.
She's not.
She's shaking her head. Nodding.
She's lip syncing.
I know. How come you're not unmuted? There you go.
There we go. I'm unmuted now. Thank you, guys. Yeah, it's, we have the credit card stuff together. Janice and I have just been so swamped also. We haven't had a chance to get together on what, some of those things on there. So we're putting it together. I'm going to suggest maybe even just a separate abstract with only those items on it. To make sure that we see that we are completely up to date for the year on approvals for all items. So that'll be something to come, and when we work on it, we'll get it out to everybody.
Thank you.
I'll vouch for the fact that there's an awful lot on Laura's plate.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we'll have discussion anymore. Are we ready? Okay, Janice?
I did not hear who seconded.
Steve.
Steve,
Connors,
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Weisberg,
Yeah.
Woodward,
yes,
Gagnon.
Yes.
I'll move the highway abstract vouchers 67 through 74 for $16,849.36.
Second.
I have one little question, and maybe it's already been taken care of, but I didn't understand the, these numbers at the bottom.
The duplicates,
What?
where there's a credit. and a
The
debit.
cook, yes. There's different, amounts of change, and I just didn't get those last ones.
This was at the
I
number.
saw it.
Brothers,
Yeah, it's on
number
the,
73.
right.
So on the bill, it said,
Right, there's these numbers, I have this on the abstract, it says 17, there's a figure 131.97.
right,
But the two places I saw 136, one says 136.97, one says 136.93. That's what you just said, Steve, right? And it's on the Excel sheet or what? I forget where I saw it now that I've got all saying it.
I didn't see that.
I didn't either, I mean, I have a check.
It might have been
matched.
I had it matched, I had everything matched up.
well,
Was it ringing a bell at all, Laura?
No, are you talking about, did I hear you say Cook Brothers?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know that they had a lot of different things. We had credits, we returned some certain items, so there were a lot of different things on there.
Right.
So we have, if you match them up right to the invoices and to the credits that we have on there.
Well,
Should be,
that's
I mean, I'll
did
pull it out, double check it if you want me to, but
I did
Oh.
match up the credits and all of those. It was just that one, and it's just probably,
So weird.
I don't, it was on the
what's the dollar amount?
136.97 versus 136.93.
But on the abstract, it says
It's been-
131.97.
Yeah, yeah. And it was,
Are they different bills?
I don't know. That was the thing that I was looking at that Excel, or I looked at the bill. Or Steve, did you see what I'm talking about?
I didn't see that from looking right now. Well, I've got this one.
What does that say?
131.97.
Yeah, that's on the,
That's on the
I think I
extra.
changed at some point. I looked at this morning.
yeah, I looked at it.
Here they
today.
are, here they are, here they are. I'm sorry.
Probably me, not looking at something right, but if everybody sees it right,
There's a lot. I mean, look at all the.
yeah.
all the
1, 2,
credits.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, the credits, they all match up, the credits and the
It took
stuff.
several tries to get the right part. It
There were
looks like.
Yeah, the
Oh, I'm
wrong,
looking for my stuff. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't have it out. I thought I had it out and mailed it to you. here.
He's got it up saying 131.97.
right. I don't know where I saw it. Sorry, I'll try, if, you know, yeah.
Sorry, I had my abstract 6 here and now I'm not locating what I need in my piles of stuff.
Steve's got it up.
That's sure on the abstract, but I didn't.
Right. The abstract says 151.97.
Right.
Okay, so it's right now.
Yes, this part's right. This part's right. Those, the 131.97 is correct. I don't know what these are.
Oh, okay.
I saw it, but I just don't.
Oh, if I
I
could,
can say, when I go switching through that stuff, it's
Yeah.
at home. on the-
Okay, well,
Anyway, this abstract's right.
okay.
If the abstract's right, then we'll probably.
if you go ahead and approve it and I'll do a review and if we need to next time, adjust. Okay, wait a minute. Hang on, wait a minute.
Looking at it.
131.97, is that what you're talking about?
Mhm.
Okay.
So maybe you saw that on the bill.
It could have been on a bill. I'd have to go back and try and find that on there.
290, 296, 131.97. Yep, I've got a bill here that says 131.97. And that's what's on the voucher, which is what should be on that. My vouchers carry right straight through to the abstract. Then a 75.92, it's 729. I'm reading off the bills themselves. Credit is 125.72. Mine all match up from what I have for all of the bills that have been the actual invoices that are put together on there.
So this looks right.
Yeah, this
We could
part,
check.
I'll try and find the thing that I'm talking about, which is not on the abstract anyway, so we can approve this abstract as it is.
We can figure out what that-
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
All right.
Find it and we see it, we'll adjust it next time as well.
Yeah.
You can always put in an amendment or something if we see something for a few cents. But from what I have, what I just looked at, they all match.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay, Janet?
Connors,
Yes.
Hunter,
yes,
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
yes,
Gagnon.
Yes. Which brings us to business. The park grant application is ours to make on behalf of the park, not to come from the town. So what we're dealing with here is a supporting resolution and a secret review. So I guess I would turn to David to sort of lead us through things in a reasonable order.
Great. So we need to do this in the opposite order of what you just said. Seeker first.
Speaker first, right?
Yes. But before we get to that, we can go over what the project is, in case it's not clear, and you may have questions, but I've had some back and forth with Amanda, the current leader of the Danby Community Park Association. We put together a budget for just under $5,000 that would allow them to create 207 feet of temporary boards for wet conditions. That there currently are a few out in the park, but my understanding is they're rotted and in need of replacement. Some of the things with these, they're going to make them a little taller than they had been to deal with places that they measured water depth in different locations. They would like to do much more, but they came up with a budget a little more than double what's available from this grant. So they're thinking about looking for other things, but to make it simple for the county, I wanted to only tell them that we're doing a project that we know can be funded, and then if they can get more money and do more, that's awesome.
Right.
So let me open up the seeker form and I can share my screen.
So
Are there
part
any
one,
questions about?
Yeah, part one was linked to the agenda and folks have had a chance to look at it, but we should perhaps review it together.
Okay, we can do that. I'm sharing the wrong screen then. Let me get out. This is part 2 and 3. Let me stop sharing that.
Clerk District, medical alarm activation, 320 Caswell Road, 3 West Road, Sundown Road.
Who do we need to mute? Okay.
Laura's at the office.
Oh. Okay.
Rescue,
Let's see
Dryden,
now.
Clerk District, 3 Road, 32 Bravo, 2 female,
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see. Good.
Okay. I've got part 1 here, right? The brief project description. The Danby Community Park Association proposes the replacement and addition of movable boards for segments along the existing park trail network in areas where flooding and/or mud are frequent issues, preventing use of the trail, reduce the potential for damage to the trail, and to make the trail system usable for a greater part of the year. These walking boards will be constructed similar to a U.S. Forest Service Type 2 puncheon made with pressure-treated dimensional lumber. The parcel is 90.8 acres. There's not going to be any physical disturbance from this because what they're building is something that they just set on top of the ground when it's needed and then move away when they need to mow. It is permitted under zoning, consistent with the comp plan. I did 4-year draft resolution, as well as for the grants, pull several statements that the town has about supporting active and passive uses of the park and the park association in general. It is not a critical environmental area. It is consistent with the character of the existing landscape, not expected to increase noise or traffic above present levels. There is transportation services and pedestrian accommodations and bicycle routes at the site. It will not be meeting energy code because it's not using any energy. It won't be plugging into utilities. It does, part of that site is within a buffer listed by Parks and Recreation as possible archaeological site. But again, we're not creating any ground disturbance with the project. Some of the land in question is in a wetland, hence it being wet. But it won't be altering or creating any disturbance in that area. And also, one of the nice things about this kind of design is it doesn't dam up the water like it would if you were to raise the level of the trail, keep it dry.
But still or something, yeah.
Exactly. The site is wetland, forests, and grasslands. It does have the northern harrier. It is not in the 100-year floodplain. It's in the every-year floodplain, but not in a recognized floodplain. It won't create any stormwater discharge. It won't impound any water. Not a closed solid waste management facility. And hasn't been subject to remediation for hazardous waste. So that's the part.
Right. I think probably we concur with all that. Yep. Which brings us to part 2 and 3.
Yes, part 2 and 3. it up and share that screen.
You had it just moments ago.
I did. Right. Here we go. So I can go through the questions, and then I've drafted a paragraph. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use or plan or zoning regulation? Check no or small impact. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No or small impact. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No or small impact. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a CEA? We don't have any of those. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or an existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No or small impact. Will the proposed action cause an increase in use of energy and it fails to incorporate readily available energy conservation or renewable energy options? No or small impact. No or small impact to existing public and private water supplies or wastewater treatment utilities. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in adverse change to natural resources? Again, I've checked no or small impact. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No or small impact. And will it create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? So all of those in the draft for you, I've checked no or small impact. If you'd like to discuss any of them further, now would be a good time to do so.
I concur with all of those.
So we're all in agreement?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. For part 3, I've put in a short sentence here. The proposed grant application and associated project will include the creation of movable temporary wooden walkways that reduce soil compaction and sediment loss from trail use when the ground is wet. Project is fully reversible and mobile. As such, it's not expected to have any significant environmental impacts. So now, if we are all in agreement based on the application and part 1 and part 2, if someone would like to move that you are determining based on the information analysis above that the proposed action will not result in any significant environmental impacts.
Also known as a negative declaration. I so move.
Second.
Anybody have anything you want to add before we vote?
Speaking from walking in there and having to try to jump from one old thing or a rock to another, this will be a huge improvement.
Mhm. Okay, ready? Yes.
Yes, just to clarify before the vote, was that Connors that seconded?
Catherine,
Catherine.
Oh, Catherine, okay. I couldn't discern whose voice that was. Thank you. Connors,
yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Excellent.
So the support resolution.
Yes, I'll put that up here. Kept it a little briefer, but as a whereas first, our goal from the comp plan to actively support the development of a Danby community park with active and passive recreational facilities that are needed in Danby. Whereas that the Park Association identified flooding issues on the trails as a key issue to deal with and put together a budget and plan for the creation of these movable boardwalks. A grant of up to $5,000 is available from Tompkins County to fund improvements of parks and trails. And I want to make sure the board is clear. This will be a grant to the town that the town will then have to give to the Park Association.
Mhm.
Because this program funds the municipalities, but I did make sure with them, it is fine that it's for land that isn't owned by the town. So be it resolved that the town of Danby Town Board supports and authorizes the submission of a grant application for up to $5,000 to the Municipal Parks and Trails Grant Program. And be it further resolved that if the grant application is successful, the town board authorizes the supervisor to execute contracts with Tompkins County and the Danby Community Park Association to implement the project.
Is the third whereas implies that it is ineligible because it says to fund improvement of public parks and trails. This is not a public park.
By their discernment, it is a public park. It's public enough.
Because it serves the public.
That's not private.
But it is private.
Well,
The fact that-
Yeah.
yeah.
They have apparently funded a past project in the park and are comfortable that it meets the goals of the program.
Yeah. Okay. Would somebody like to move it?
And so that'll all be worked out in the contract. I'm assuming if the town gets the money and then we pass it on, that we need to have a contract that talks about what the benefits are.
Actually, we haven't got a contract with the park anyway.
Not
We need
yet.
a contract with the park, period, before we can give them any money.
Well, that's true too. Which is hinging on the report and what they're doing about getting themselves straight with the IRS.
Correct.
But so there'll be even more money in the
More incentive.
yeah, exactly.
I move that we support the application to Tompkins County for the parks and trails funding.
I.e. this resolution.
Hmm?
That is this
Moving the resolution.
this resolution. Yeah.
Right.
Second. And Steve seconded it. Any further discussion? Okay, Janice.
Connors,
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes. Next up. Proposed change from elected to appointed town clerk. This came up as something which, if we were going to entertain it, we would want to bring it up at this point so that those who were potentially running for the office would know that, you know, would have such advance warning that this is something we'd like to see happen, even though there would be no guarantee that it would happen, because if we pass the local law on proposing it, it's subject to mandatory referendum.
Right.
So the voters get to decide, which would happen at the same time as the election of the
All right.
clerk in
Right.
November.
Hmm.
And I asked the town attorney about that, and he said that there's no impediment to both being on the ballot. And that if the referendum passes and the position is abolished, then the people elected to it don't get to take office because the position no longer exists. And then it'll then be a board appointment instead. If it fails to pass, then, you know, the outcome of the election will determine
Right.
who the town clerk is as of January 1st. So, what's your pleasure here? Do we want to propose it?
We've talked about it in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think the advantages are compelling, in my opinion. The main one being that the board would have a better certainty regarding who gets to do what. Right now, we have with a quasi-independent town clerk, it's always a question of, you know, if we want to add tasks, we have the option of adding to the long list of things that a clerk has to do, you know, other things that the town board asks the clerk to do. But if the if the clerk doesn't do them, then we don't have any real recourse. We do have the alternative of saying, well, we could hire somebody or add,
Right.
positions on instead of asking the clerk to deal with it in her office. But to me, I mean, having the clerk be communication central as we pitched the job and when we hired Janice originally, makes a lot of sense. And having those things all be under the purview of the town clerk makes sense to me. But it also would make sense if we had a little bit more control over the scope and execution of the work.
Well, we've put it forth to the voters for the highway superintendent. We haven't done it for the clerk.
I couldn't remember that. Is that in fact the case?
Yeah, I mean, it was always let's do the highway superintendent first,
Mhm.
and then do the clerk. But I mean, I don't have strong feelings one way or another. It's always interesting to find out what people think.
One benefit of having somebody appointed is you actually do an application process. You get a resume, you get applications.
Oh, yeah.
You evaluate the applications. You contact the references and get information about the references.
Yeah.
And since this is a job, not a political position, it's a job, it makes sense
Yeah.
that you have the standard procedures that everybody does for hiring somebody in any particular job.
All right. Yeah, I'm not debating, I'm not disagreeing that it makes sense logically, and structurally, but, it's up to the voters. So.
Well,
I mean,
sure,
we could
but I
put it
mean,
forth.
but it's kind of up to us to decide whether we think it's something we want to
Right.
propose,
Uh-huh.
and if so, why? So we ought to have a rationale. Well, Pat just mentioned, one of the good reasons for doing it. This is a political position,
I know.
but why should it be?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ministerial in nature. The clerk doesn't make policy decisions for the town. So why should it be an elected
Yeah.
position? And I don't see any good reason for it to be elected. The argument can be made, and it has been made, that where this change has been made from elected to appointed tends to be in larger municipalities.
Yeah.
As the job becomes more and more complicated, becomes more and more essential that the person hired or who has the position
Right.
has the credentials to actually implement it well. And in smaller towns, I guess the feeling is that the voters can evaluate for themselves whether or not the people who are running for the office are competent to execute it. And we certainly have some indication that voters like being able to make these
Right.
decisions, even though rarely do they ever have a choice.
Right.
It almost never comes up except when the office is vacated for one reason or another. Because somebody decides not to run again, or retires. And then people are willing to do it, to run for it. Almost never challenge an incumbent.
Right.
So I'm hearing some support for proposing it. Yeah.
I think it's okay to propose this, and I think it is something to bring to the voters, and it doesn't mean that, anybody can then apply. It's just, and it does make sense to be able to, a person who's applying then can point out their particular abilities and background or whatever that would make them good for the various and sundry tasks. But it seems also that it might give a little more freedom to the kinds of jobs that could be the town clerk's job, then maybe could be split up a bit more so that there were people who would be able to apply, might have a lesser number of hours for somebody who wanted a less job, and then you could also hire somebody else to do another job. That's one of the things that I think make things easier when, we maybe not be that large a community or jurisdiction, but we do have a lot of things that we're asked of our of our employed and appointed people.
Yeah,
And
I say, I see Janice would like to comment. Janice?
Hi, thanks. I'll turn my video on. I debated on whether to say anything because you are talking about me and my position. And, I think I'm in a uniquely poised position to speak to this since I was actually appointed to start with and then elected. And I too wondered why it was an elected position. It seems very administrative, very managerial. However, I can say without any doubt, I am highly qualified to do this position. And you all reviewed my resume, my credentials. What seems to have happened is that the minute something happens that is not favored by the board, I am now being punished. That said, as an elected position, the clerk shouldn't be beholden to the legislative body because the clerk creates and maintains the records. And if the clerk is beholden to the legislative body, then records could be altered if the clerk does not want to lose their job. It was just said that this is a job. I agree 1,000%. It is a demanding job. It is a full-time job. And at the pay that it is given, it's not valued as a job. So, I understand the questions of why is the town clerk an elected position? And at the same time, I understand why there is a need to have an impartial voice who maintains and keeps the records, that doesn't have to worry about losing their job if, for whatever reason, the board suddenly decides that they don't like that person.
Yeah, well, I don't know that that's terribly relevant to the general case. I mean, there's no less a need for the record keeping to be done well in larger municipalities than smaller ones, and it's the larger municipalities with the greater need that have gone to appointed instead of elected.
I would like to say that it would be useful when we set up some kind of a procedure, that it would be useful to include other people in the process of evaluating the positions. Somebody like Laura, and maybe somebody from a community person, so it's not simply board members that are involved. It's a committee that looks at it, makes a recommendation.
Sort of
to
a
the
hiring
board.
committee.
A hiring committee
Mhm.
that includes other people besides the board, community people.
Oh, yeah.
I know the Board of Education has done that for principals.
Mhm.
The board for the school board makes the choice, but there's a very large committee that includes teachers, parents, people not associated with school, that are making those recommendations to the board.
Mhm. So, shall I have Guy work one up?
Sure.
All right. We got time. IT and cybersecurity division. We had a fairly long meeting, almost 3 hours on last, was it Wednesday? Thursday. The day after the regular meeting. And it was just the meet for the whole meeting. Something occurred to me as I was looking at the one proposal that we have before us, is that our procurement policy asks that we have at least 3 quotes before making a decision of this size. And then there's a board decision, who to go with, but
we've had at least 3, and they've been passed around. They've all come.
I couldn't find anything. I mean,
Oh, yeah, we've had them.
Yeah,
We've had 4.
yeah,
Counting SCT, there's 4.
right. And I've sent them, all those things have been sent out to all the board repeatedly. And
Is
with,
it, I couldn't find it. I couldn't find all of them either. I could find reference to meetings, but not specific proposals. Is it possible to get those all in one place?
they have ICS.
There is a central repository on Work Drive. If you go in Town of Danby contracts, proposals and quotes, there are quotes in there from TCNS, from SCT, from HPM, from ICS. I don't know if I have all of the ones that Catherine
yeah, those,
shared, but
ICS, yeah.
yes, and besides that, I talked to other ones, but they, some of them did not send
We didn't get a quote.
a quote from them, but
We
we've
only
had,
quote three is enough, but
yeah,
I just couldn't find them.
great. I think that, I can say that I have sent these out to board members with many, questions of them to please call, check, ask, and they've, there's been plenty of opportunity. So I will say that, in spite of, and I don't want to do a back and forth, but I'm going to say this anyway. In spite of what Ted was saying, the quote that, this is a board decision, one, and two, there's a lot of detail in the full quote. These are public companies. They're available for, anybody can call one of these companies and say, so what do you do about this? What do you do about that? So anyway, I did write where is, yes, I wrote a resolution in my, with a little help. And I personally am hoping that the town will not keep dragging its feet on this. That's what I feel. You want me to read my resolution?
Yeah. Well, why don't you make it move? I move.
All right,
Whatever it is.
okay. Then I read it as the whereas.
Yeah.
All right. I move that we accept or vote on, or whatever the right words are, this resolution. Whereas we previously contracted with SCT Computers for hardware and network and equipment and support. And whereas SCT informed us Monday, March 27th, that as our contract ended December 4th, 2022, and they were only serving us on a month-to-month basis, they would no longer serve the town of Danby. And whereas New York State is increasingly adding cybersecurity oversight to their local government audits. And whereas the town board reviewed proposals from 3 different vendors. And whereas I put my name, Catherine Hunter, with reports to the town, extensively consulted with additional vendors, other towns, the county and the state offices, and the highway, I forgot to put in here the state offices for Homeland Security, and cyber insurance brokers. Therefore, be it resolved that the town will hire Triple Cities Network Solutions, TCNS, as their new IT vendor and IT support in a contract agreement that will not exceed $34,000 per year. And be it further resolved that TCNS will undergo a complete gap assessment of our needs and vulnerabilities, resulting in updates to our network and hardware equipment, services, and software. And be it further resolved that to come into compliance, the town will invest in cybersecurity insurance.
There should be a note there that it's the explicit contract you're looking for is the,
Service level.
not the service level.
Oh, service.
Be explicitly in there.
Yeah, service care.
Mhm.
I'll second that so we can discuss it.
I'm sure you got all that, right, Ken?
Yeah, I can give it.
I
to
think
her.
Catherine will share the text
Yeah.
for minutes purposes. Okay, so it's moved and seconded, and now we can talk about it.
Laura maybe could, I'm only wondering one thing about the text, that SCT said they would no longer serve the town of Danby. I think and tell me if I'm wrong, that they would no longer sue the town of Danby on a month-to-month basis. That's what
Well, but basically,
That's not what they told me on the phone.
there was,
Yeah, but,
as opposed to saying they would if we had a 3-year contract.
possibly,
yeah,
they weren't gonna, they were no longer interested in doing a month-to-month, which,
yeah, that is actually not what they said to me on the telephone.
Oh.
And I received
It
it,
wasn't my impression either. It was that
Right.
they basically want to wash their hands of us all.
Yeah.
Well, when I talked, the last time I talked to them, which was just a few days ago, well, at the end of last week, that they wanted to, if they were to still do business with us, they'd like to see us, of course, get on the what they call managed care, which is the tracking. There were a few things they said they needed to add to our system for, so we could get our cyber insurance. To what level they didn't, to what level of security they didn't get into that or anything. But they had some other stipulations too that that they had in dealing with the town of Danby. So I'm not sure if you'd want to get, I don't know if we should probably get into that right here, whatever, what their stipulations are. So it almost sounds like they're ready to move on. And I think that we're probably ready to move on as well with that relationship with them.
But maybe that reference should be just deleted from the.
well, they did say that to me on the telephone. I mean,
in part,
it doesn't need to be there, but,
need to do something.
right.
Was precipitated by they saying they're no longer willing to support them on a month-to-month basis, if not altogether.
Yeah, I mean, I just wonder about. I had caught a different vibe, and maybe different vibes were going around,
Mhm.
but. And since it's not in writing, it would be easier, safer to write it, said they wouldn't continue as is.
Yeah, I did not,
Right, they won't continue as is,
what did she say?
They won't continue
they
serving
won't
as is.
continue as is, right. I mean, we would have to sign a 3-year contract with them. We would have to go into their managed care. And I know you'd have to take the time to kind of look at what their levels are as compared to this other company that we're looking at now. And the other as well as the other companies that we've looked at too, and what those levels are, we haven't, I mean, we have some comparisons. Like I say, they didn't get into exactly what they would be putting on, but they have had some things that they needed to visit, but they had some other requirements too from the town of Danby. So
No,
I will say, speaking for myself, that I found it really hard to discern what it is that they were providing, given all the jargon and acronyms in the quote.
did you read all the, I mean, the line items? It is confusing, but that is, I found the same thing. If I, every, yes. And what I also found out is that there are other companies that may not charge as much, but they have, in order to get the things we need, everything's another option. It's been added.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right, added, and then it's an hourly, yes, a la carte. And it was described to me at one point that some companies work on what they call a quota. They give a certain price, and then all the other things that are discovered to be needed are then sold as an additional. And that is not appealing to me under the circumstances of our, I think that, I mean, the bottom line is, to me, the county and the state are still trying to figure out what to do. And that's the case that I found with other towns and talking to some of the vendors. The latest thing that I've been reading, because I actually got into the Washington Post has a blog thing that tells about changes and the changes that are happening and the amount of time it takes to undo an error as the cost in physical, time, yes, is more than we have available to us. We don't have an on-site, we don't have an on-staff IT person. If we did have an contract of, if we had an IT person on our staff, that wouldn't even count any of the equipment or the infrastructure that would be needed for this.
It costs more.
Right, and the increase in requirements for cyber insurance, that's one of the things that is really a big deal. I did ask more about that, and anybody else can ask and find out the things I did, which I'm not I'm not trying to besmirch anybody either.
The 34,000, that doesn't include the hardware, does it?
It,
I talked to the town of Newfield.
What's that?
I called this and talked with the supervisor of the town of Newfield, who has the SCT computers. And he wanted to say, he was sorry, Catherine, he hadn't had a chance to get back to you because you tried to call too. He had reported to me that he was going to be meeting with SCT computers and they were going to be discussing what they were going to do, some of the upgrades and things they were going to make to their systems so that they could get a higher level of cybersecurity. But once again, we don't really know what those things are. So at this time, we really don't have anything to truly compare to. And I don't know about some of their bigger customers, what they have to is we haven't talked to that. But this company seems to have things on a level that is, from what they have given the proposals for and their presentations and some of the bigger things that they do, it looks like they have also an insurance company that works with them with the cyber insurance.
yeah. I think that the question who asked me that?
I asked about the hardware.
Oh, okay. What I've been told from both anybody I've talked to so far, the first thing is they have to come in and evaluate and figure out what is missing, what's needed, and what needs to be scheduled. And that was the same thing from everybody. They said, nobody's going to come in and say you have to get 10 new computers right now. I mean, companies are aware of budgets. So that budget is the same thing that we face no matter what we do, even if we do nothing. As a computer goes down, we have to replace it.
Sure, yeah. But you did evaluate our what we've got.
Yeah, only very peripherally.
Yeah, he did not do a detailed evaluation.
Wasn't detailed, no.
Right.
It was a marketing evaluation, not a job evaluation.
Right, and the thing is that there are variables that they include the numbers of the phone system for one. Our current phone bills may be reduced by the change of the phone system. The numbers of who has what kind of computers. Email addresses. We may change the levels of that. There are lots of variables, but those are the things that get inspected in the onboarding. Can't remember all the terms.
Yeah, no, that's all jargon associated with that too.
Well, that isn't even jargon when I talk about it. It's just that I'm a little nervous, so that always stresses me out doing this. I've done so much talking and so much listening to more than one company, and the fact that I'm not a computer expert does not mean that I'm not good at evaluating the response that we're getting or the threat that we have.
May I ask, because I looked at the proposal, I also listened to most of the 3-hour meeting. In the proposal, I am having a hard time finding a bottom line. So what is the total cost? Does anyone know that?
Yeah,
It's close to 40,000, 39,000.
39,000.
actually, that's including a tax
Take off 200.
Oh,
a month.
So,
It brings it back down closer to 30.
yeah.
I
Um,
wanted to.
Monthly cost?
You take that tax is in monthly, that's on the monthly.
Right. Right.
So is there an annual cost? I mean, I guess I could multiply that by
I'm guessing that you totaled it up and that's how you get 34.
Yeah, I don't have much.
Yeah, you need,
It was a most likely.
12.
So if we were thinking it was somewhere around 34,000.
right, that's what we were thinking when I looked at this. Here's the
And what's our current budget for IT?
6,000.
About 6, right? 6 to 7. Is that right, Laura?
Yes, that's correct.
But we didn't, in those budgets, we do not have, we're piecemeal with some things in that, so this is,
And then, do we have any idea how much insurance might cost on an annual basis?
Estimate was 2,000 on
2,000?
the low end. If we have
It's a
good,
range, right?
if we have good coverage in terms of what we have for security,
Minimizing
then
the
it's
risk.
likely to be $2,000 is what. they're saying.
2,000 per year?
yeah. Now that, also we have the option of, there's a broker, we have options with brokers of different companies. So I talked to two of those people as well, and two of the broker types.
The situation with respect to cyber insurance is that it's hard to get a policy at all unless you're well protected and in terms of reducing your risk. And if you do that, then the cost is on the lower end of the range of available policies. So we might be able to get it for $2,000 as opposed to as much as $10,000 if we don't minimize our risk.
And what I did find is that when I asked other companies questions like this, some companies were hedging an answer about whether or not there is the cyber insurance. I mean, the cyber insurance end of it seems to me to be getting more and more difficult to get.
Yeah, right.
And because of nobody wants to, we all know what it's like when you have something happen to your car and you want to go, and if there's a way to get out of paying, they want to get out of paying. And that's why having one company, in my opinion, who will handle all of the required IT support so that we can apply with proper credentials. That's not a good word, but
Having minimized our risk.
it definitely minimizes the risk.
And from what we've learned, having to use the insurance is something you want to avoid if you possibly can. So
Sure.
the more we position ourselves to minimize our risk, the less of a likelihood we are to need the insurance, and the cheaper it is to procure it to cover that small risk that remains. So that's a good reason to go with a fairly comprehensive supplier like Privileged Network. I do want us to realize the sort of long-term budgetary impact of jumping this level, because $34,000, I guess it's about that by the time you subtract out and add in, is about a 1.5% levy increase in order to cover it if we were to add it as an ongoing expense in our budget. And I think that's, we just have to keep that in mind, when budget time comes around. There's a good chance that the transition, the first year, we can, because we're shifting from what we are to something different, it's not a regular part of our operations, we could probably cover that with our ARPA money. But then subsequently, it's a built-in annual thing, and we have to raise taxes to pay for it.
Built-in annual thing for a 3-year contract.
Right.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
Right, and then after that, we hope, someday, that that there'll be a recognition that this would be more economically handled if it were held done in a intermunicipal fashion, and the county played a lead role instead of each town doing their own thing. But that's going to take a while. So
Right.
we're pretty much committed for 3 years.
I think it's worth noting that in the budget, we also added some money for extra support for maintenance for help on the phone system and the website. So it's not just $6,000. That was another $6,000 in there for that purpose as well.
Good point.
Could I also add one other thing in
Sure.
favor? Also, when we're looking at this, I know it's even for the last 2 years, we've been talking about possibly hiring. I mean, at one point we wanted to hire a position that reported to the board that took on a lot of these different IT things and website things and all of those kinds of responsibilities. And it sounds like with this contract for Triple Cities, that they would be more hands-on with the town And I think that that can, we could really explore to see if that would meet that need, which if you were to ever hire even a part-time employee, by the time you get FICA and Medicare in there and have everything, that's pretty expensive too. So this
Right.
might be, this is something kind of that you've been, this increase in, you know, what you wanted to spend for all of this kind of stuff, kind of would be two birds with one stone with part of that increase anyway.
At least some of it would be.
Yes, yes, just something I wanted to point out, and that was the other thing too, I wanted to say, but Joel brought it up, that you were asking that, Steve, about the budget, you know, what we had in there, and we we're definitely, of course, wanting to get started on this right away. That using that ARPA money, you know, as a transitional upgrade to our IT. I think that would take care of itself.
I'm
That's
gonna
it.
say also, thank you,
Just wanted to
Laura. And the
kind of-
thing is that if we were to go that route, we would have to take care of all our piecemeal infrastructure.
That
And
could
the
be
learning and the
included, that could be included in this ARPA money as well. So
I
you
mean,
see,
in the, you mean if we hired somebody?
If we hired somebody.
Yeah.
oh, no, if you hired someone, no,
That's
but
what I was talking about.
Right,
I'm talking
so-
about when Laura, yes, when Laura was saying if we were to hire somebody, I'm saying if we did hire somebody, we would also have to hire out or buy the equipment. We'd have to have the proper information.
And the software.
Plus, we don't have, you know, when we have a company that has every 15-minute backup,
Mhm.
and we have a staff of people that does it instead of one person. Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
not going to say anymore.
that's kind of what I was saying, that it would be almost like with another staff member in here. Keeping track of everything, making things happen. And a professional person we can contact at any time. Not that we can't contact our current one every single time, but this is a different level of service, different level of operating.
Yep.
Just was putting that in from the financial standpoint, not having to hire another person, but instead putting that money into this system, into a bigger kind of system.
Further discussion? Ready? Janice?
Yes, where am I on the page? Sorry. Connors,
Aye.
Hunter,
Yes.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes. Okay. The Cannabis Local Law. Do we have a resolution?
I think we did.
For that, David, or do we just move to pass it?
I am here if you need me.
For the
Okay,
zoning law, we have to approve.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I can share, I can put on screen the local law. It
Okay.
is linked in the agenda above if you'd like.
The local law amending the zoning ordinance, right, to the zoning law to.
That's correct.
Okay. We've seen this. We looked at it, it was on the agenda last time.
I probably have it.
Yeah. What's the text of the local law and what it would do? It's fairly short, which is not, we're not talking a lot of changes. I move that local law.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Looks like you wanted to say
No, no, it's stupid. I was gonna say, if somebody needs the munchies, they'll go and pick some apples off your trees. Sorry, sorry, I just needed a little levity.
At the right time of the year, the kids.
Don't think apples are cut.
Oh, dear.
Okay, ready? Yes, right?
Yep.
Okay, Janice.
Connors,
Aye.
Hunter,
Aye.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes,
Gagnon.
Yes. Yes, short-term rental survey. We have recently received, like what, yesterday and today, an updated version of what that compromised the differences between what Leslie had and what David had, more or less.
So,
Mhm. And I had a couple of concerns, but maybe we could, can we, are you here in a position to screen share, David?
Sure.
I think what's especially useful is the option to have something more detailed explanation up front
And I
of
thought
what
that
the issue
introduction
is.
was really
That I
good.
think is extremely important
Yeah.
for to get the results of the survey.
I think that introductory page is really well done at this
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
yeah. I had some misgivings about number two,
Mhm.
and having, which, to me, hindsight, it actually looks like we're having residents squeal on each other. I'm not really interested in. I don't want people to feel that way. I don't know what we could replace it with.
Can I ask why we got rid of the question that just listed possible problems that people have had?
I'm sorry,
It's like two is kind of replacing that.
I didn't catch what you.
In the previous version, there was a checkbox question that listed possible issues that people have had
Yeah.
with short-term rentals, which is no longer in this. I feel like.
Right, and
it's-
the thought was, and this was David's thing, is that it sort of prompted people to think about all the potentially bad things that might be associated with it, and prejudice the case, so to speak, because there weren't any countervailing, good things associated with it. So one could expand the list and have a list of, pluses and minuses.
We should do that on the second contract.
Yeah, I thought there
So
were
what?
some
Get,
income, tax revenue was in there.
Number five,
Yeah.
sort of, yeah, I mean,
Turn your neighborhood into a happening place,
I would hope that, my thought was the question about what have you personally experienced? I would hope that people would be honest and either say they've experienced some of these things or not at
They
all.
haven't had any
None.
negative experiences.
Um,
Yeah.
Which I think would probably be a number of people's
Mhm.
answers. But, if we
One
do
question I
a
had, and
survey-
maybe this is still a draft, but for the current question number 2, where it simply asks what impacts have you experienced? I'm assuming we don't really want that to be in like a table form. Like we would just leave space for people to answer, because I don't know what they could put in those cells.
I guess I'm not,
Yeah, I know, good. Well, that's a good point. I mean, why would you put cells as opposed to just having it be a blank box that you write in?
I guess if we were doing a survey on something in the future, I'm not sure it's useful to put in there address, make specific about a particular address and identify somebody. I don't think it matters. If
Well,
we're
it
getting,
might-
if we're getting
it would tell you
information,
what part of town it's in at least. You might find out that the problems that we've had, that the neighbors have, is all in one
Right.
part of town.
Right, but that's only, yeah,
But how else would you do it?
That's optional,
it
does
says
say-
it optional,
It says
but
it's optional.
that's still a little, That's a little, makes people uncomfortable, and I don't want people to not do it because of that.
Oh, the top, it says name and address.
Well, yeah, yours.
Right.
So maybe that's sufficient. Maybe we don't need the address of the short-term rental.
If the idea is when you experienced it, we don't need that address, if the idea is to know what neighborhood it's in, because it's where they live.
That's a good point. So you're thinking
Yeah,
that
I mean, I
it
actually-
it shouldn't mention, should probably just be a big box saying, people list your positive or negative
Right.
experiences
Right.
instead of having having address specific boxes.
I actually
That's
like the
easy enough
list.
to do.
Say, David?
That's easy enough to do, to just get rid of this stuff and have a simple fill-in form.
I didn't catch what you said.
Simple fill-in form.
Oh, what about a simple fill-in form? You think it would be good to have a simple fill-in form, or?
Yes,
Or just-
that's easy to get rid of the address and the boxes if people don't like that.
Yes. Just, answer, leave some space.
Yeah, my inclination is to leave it open instead of to leave it open-ended so that people can
Right.
respond as opposed to
Right.
giving them hints,
Mm-hmm.
because they got hints later on about things. that they could
Some of them.
They do, yeah.
Some of those are in there, some of them are not, yeah.
Disappearing as we speak. Probably gonna leave a little more, but yeah, there you go.
One other thing I'll mention, because if we want to have a QR code so that instead of doing this by hand, people have the option of doing it
Mhm.
on
Oh,
a
yes.
device, then we just need to have a space where we could include that. It would have to be like a square inch.
At the top, maybe you'd rather,
Yeah.
what would that enable? Like doing it electronically?
Sure, you can just hold your phone to it and then you go to the online form. You can just click the buttons online.
Okay. I mean, how do you fill in something like 2,
Yeah. So you have to take it.
where it's not?
Or you can speak, right?
Oh,
I just, a little bit, a bit of a troglodyte when it comes to, I don't know how I would do it.
That all.
Then again, I'm not
out.
sure, I've done that QR code so infrequently that even that, I
Yeah.
think you have to think about how
I
you
just
would
think
do
that
that.
COVID stuff,
Yeah.
shots,
But then for those of us who were in that class of people, we could just
Do the paper.
paper one.
I'm actually thinking we should have an option for people to call to have the surveys picked up. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
something we could do.
As opposed to putting a stamp on it.
Well,
For dropping it off at the,
Or dropping it out of the town hall.
drop it off or mail it.
Mm-hmm.
And another option would be one of us could go pick it up. I wouldn't mind doing that.
Interesting thought. Personal service,
Well,
were
it makes
gonna-
it easier and we get more
yeah.
back. I mean, if it would make a difference.
Well, the trouble is, I mean, if it said, yeah, I'd like to have it picked up, but then you're not gonna be home when you come, so.
Yeah.
I think that everybody, all of you are saying is that we're trying to maximize how many people reply. So
Yeah.
all the options above are fine and whatever gets people to do a survey,
Mhm.
you really want to know the answers.
My concern is farther along. It's in the list. Is it in 3? It's in 4. There's been a recent court ruling, which we heard about, but not in the state of New York, but nevertheless, I think it's a federal ruling, that struck down a law that required owner occupancy. And so if it's not something that we can do or include in our regulations, I'm afraid that, it's misleading to imply that it can be done. So the first thing here, short-term rentals should only be allowed on property where the owner lives, the operator lives. If we can't require that, people know that, they might feel differently about it than if they think it's something we can do. In other words, if you,
We should get a hearing, we should get an official report on that from the lawyer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, my understanding is that that ruling was actually very narrow
Yeah.
and specific, and that many municipalities still have a requirement.
Yeah.
It almost comes down to the wording of
We
it.
shouldn't be making up something now that we don't know the law.
I think,
but it could also be-
I think David actually has spoken to Guy about it.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I always end up, and Guy has been wonderful. I always go back to the memory of the task force for the gas drilling task force, which
Mhm.
for years, we were told, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. And we did that. And times change.
You got away with it. Yeah.
Times changed. And, oh yeah, you can do that if X, Y, Z. I mean, and maybe that option, maybe, I'm not sure, but I am just thinking maybe, if we have registration requirements or something, that if somebody's owner lives either on the property or next door in close proximity is right there to their short-term rental, maybe their registration expectations would be different. Maybe, so I'm not saying that we would require that somebody, that the short-term rentals were only in places where the person, the landlord lived nearby, but in situations where they did live nearby, maybe certain things would be less string, they'd be different maybe.
I mean, the goal is just to gather information. We're not
Right.
beholden by this. If
Right.
someone checks that box, we don't have to. answer.
No,
But
no.
you can change that wording. You don't, if you take out the, don't put the underline under only, change it to, you could even just say, would it matter to you if the owner were,
Which one
there.
is that on?
isn't that number the first?
That's not
thing
gonna
in
be
the report?
easy to change when it's a list like this.
Yeah.
David, what did you find out from,
Guy.
Guy?
Say, do it. Short-term rental should.
Guy believed that provision of owner occupancy provision would not stand up very long.
It's also not to bring in another difficult subject, but some thoughts in the noise law said that that the owner is going to be responsible for the fine and the et cetera,
Mhm.
and in the case of in the case of this or that, if somebody we were even talking about if somebody had their kids home and their parents went away for a holiday. In this case, it makes it sound like the owner would have to be there for the 24/7 that the people are there, but what about going out for dinner? What about going shopping? What about going for a hike? I mean, it's too many, might be too many ifs
Mhm.
for something like that to be in there.
Well, I mean, we might be able to put in something that would require that the property owner be available within a certain, number of hours or something. We have a contact information for them. If
Contact
there's some
information,
sort of
probably
You
good.
don't
problem.
have to have a property owner for that. You could have a neighbor or a property manager.
Right.
But I mean, maybe that.
Somebody who's responsible and can be contacted if there's an issue.
But if we take out the only, I mean, that does say something about, depending on how whether people check that off or not, it does say something about how people feel about, or what they think about,
Yeah,
potential
my only
properties.
concern with it,
Let me just take off the only.
it might be that people's preference is that it only be allowed where the operator
That's-
lives.
There's a number of
That's
people in
the point of
town that think
But
we
that's
shouldn't
good,
have
that's good
duplexes.
information to
and-
know, because if that's the case, then we can push for it other sources and get it on other places. If that's the case, it's good to know that information.
Yeah, Leslie was trying to say what she was thinking.
Never mind. But anyway.
Yeah,
I think we should
it's hard to
take
do
off that one.
two people talking at the same time.
Yeah,
What were you trying to say?
I was just gonna remind people that there's a large group of people in town that feel like duplexes should be owner occupied.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's off the wall. I think that's actually a good question. And
It doesn't mean-
it may only speak to the people who want somebody to be able to talk to them about problems, quickly.
Mhm.
And it can
Yeah, and you
be,
could say that,
it can be
that
an
could
owner,
be,
it could be somebody else.
yeah, that's not in here though,
It is.
Sure,
It
it
is.
sure is.
It
It should
is.
be,
Um,
should be.
obtain quick response to concerns.
Yeah,
yes, yeah, okay, so that's covered.
yeah.
I think this is good.
Yeah, I mean, the
I mean, on the
questions are
whole,
all kind of different.
I think it's pretty good. Are we happy with it now?
One suggestion for this that would clear the problem that courts have said is you could ask if short-term rentals should only be allowed on property where someone lives long-term. So that would mean that it was a property that includes a long-term residence, and then you can have a short-term residence as well. That you cannot, it's considered unfair to require that it be an owner, but if it, for example, if there was a duplex and you're renting out one half long-term and one half short-term, then that means someone is living on the site in addition to the use of short-term rental.
Mhm.
It is worth noting that of the 91 that we have, a very small number of them would be allowed if our rule was someone has to live on it full time. That's not currently the case.
Well,
Does
yeah,
that
they
sound
live
like
most-
a change you'd
they
like to
live most
see?
of the time.
Well, it says operator as opposed to owner.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's covered. Presumably the person who's living there full time and managing it. I mean, maybe we could say manager.
Well, they're obviously not living there full time, if they're renting it part time.
I don't know. I mean, I also feel like this is just trying to get information on what people
Yes,
think
that's
about
true.
the situation. We can pick apart what we can and can't do, but
Yeah,
I
with
mean,
based on what kind of
we just
response.
find out what people think.
Yeah, right.
And maybe out of some of this will be, an educational event about short-term rental and what we can and can't do.
That's a good point.
So I don't, I hope that's where we're headed. I mean, it'd be nice to, this would generate some thought, some activity, and that people would be interested in participating in some kind of a, charrette type thing.
Yeah, when what we do with it afterwards is,
Yeah.
topic of discussion. But,
Yeah.
But the question is this a good way of capturing what people think about it?
I
And
think
I
it
think
is.
it's pretty good. So we had talked about, if we agree on that, how we would get it in people's hands, and I think we had a consensus that we should have a special mailing. Everybody basically, as if it were like the town news, except that it's a separate thing. With a,
Can I just back up for a second? Sorry. I'm concerned about that one thing you just said, David. When you said of the 91 people or whatever, there's hardly many of them would not even be able to do this if that were a factor. And that might be a big deal to. It might be another one of those things where we rile up the people for no good reason by putting something in that makes people think they're going to lose their income or whatever. I mean, I don't know what, anyway, that's all I want to say.
But this isn't the proposed law.
What?
This is not a proposed law. It's just,
Well, what is it?
Right.
it's a
It's not a
survey.
proposed law now, but why would we even do it if we weren't?
it's not even the basis of the proposal.
No,
It is merely a way of getting a sense for what people think about the short-term.
I get that.
So that we, based on that information, we can entertain whether we need to do anything, and if so, what?
I get all of that, but as soon as you say, do something like this, that's my first thought would be, this is now the town's thinking about doing something again, another thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my reaction.
We are thinking about.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, so don't say it's not
So
even a
that's
thought.
it's not an inaccurate thought.
Right, it is a thought.
Yeah.
It is a
So
potential.
why would we be doing this unless we were
Exactly.
thinking about whether we needed to do it or not?
I mean, I think that, the first page
Explains that.
hopefully describes
Yeah, it does.
enough. I mean, if people read the whole thing.
Right.
Well, I would think you would read that front page because it orients you to the whole thing.
Yeah,
And that front page does a really good job of describing where we are.
Right.
Yeah.
And why we want to know what people think.
right. Right.
And it's just a question of what, and does the survey actually do a good job of letting them express what they think? And I think it does.
Well, I need to also leave, that's why, I mean, the two, if it's just left a blank space where people can.
Yeah.
put in.
Looking for the place to say, no.
I know. And I don't know what other people think, but I'm not, feel awkward about asking people to out their
Yeah.
neighbors.
I do.
Well,
I-
I mean, and so we agree, take the,
Yeah, that's gone.
the identification out.
Okay,
Because as Pat pointed out, we know what neighborhood they're in because they're giving that information up front. Where, their name and where they live.
yeah,
So we can connect it to, these concerns in that neighborhood. Without asking them to out their neighbors,
yeah. That would,
so to speak.
well, my neighborhood.
Should we give it our imprimatur and say, let's go with it?
I have one last question. On that first page and also on the instruction page, it references doing it online, and then it gives a URL.
Yeah, I report duplication. Is it-
Well, I clicked on that, I entered that URL, and there's nothing there right now.
Mhm.
Right,
But it goes to survey.com, which is a different place where you can create a survey.
Mhm.
So that's fine. We then need to create the survey. I mean, this is pretty simple. I'm sure we could create something similar there.
yes, but you've got something that we could also link to the website, right? That we could put-
That's true, but if we do that, then we would want to change this.
Yeah, I want only one survey out there. I don't want two separate surveys. That's gonna be really.
Different versions
Two
of the same
separate- I
thing.
don't want two separate, what are you talking about?
One, online, this be online.
Right,
Yeah.
right here,
Right.
Right.
The link should be to the same thing.
what I have.
Right, right.
So maybe we should just direct people to the town website and have a link there.
That'd be easiest.
Or again, have the QR.
Or have your QR code, which takes you there. Oh, there's room now. You probably put a QR code on the survey.
You only need.
Yes, we can do both.
You actually have half a page free.
Probably one of those.
The URL there is just a stand-in. It's just because we don't have the online survey created yet, but we can make it with Google Forms or Zoho Forms or SurveyMonkey or whatever we want. It's just there because we're going to put something there, and we can put a QR code that goes to the same place.
Okay, well, David, since you have this document, I put together something that's a Google form. Why don't I just share that with you right now?
Sure. Yeah, just make it so that I can edit it and I'll make the adjustments.
Mhm.
I mean, I hate to add another whole can of worms to this, but,
So then.
yeah, then shut up.
No, I'm here.
But, I used to do a lot of surveys for the county mental health, and one of the options we always gave people was to have help filling out a survey.
Mhm.
If, I'm just thinking there are people who maybe don't have access to the internet. feel uncomfortable, whatever, but I'm just wondering if it might be helpful to have a sentence with, if you need help filling this out, or, don't have the tools to be able to
After
send it
9-year-old.
electronically, I could put my name down and my phone, my email or my phone number. I don't,
I think that's a great
I
idea.
just, I used to
If
do
you
that.
put, but need help, call,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
wouldn't hurt. There's room,
I
right?
just think that we may have some people who would answer it, but they're like, it's too much to deal with.
Mhm. You agree?
Yes.
Can we add that? That's up, yeah, okay.
I like the phrase "need help?" question mark and then how.
With
Yeah.
the survey.
Oh.
Yeah, with the survey, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right.
I gotta put that in there.
Yeah,
Good point.
Yeah.
right. Don't tell me if you need somebody to do your dishes.
They might want to know if they need help anyway, but that'll be a whole other kind of question.
So we had talked about getting this out in April, right? So it could be done next week or the week after that, or however soon we can get it together.
David said he's about to leave on vacation, so what help we need from him? We need,
Next week, you're gonna be gone next week, right, Dave?
okay.
That means we're gonna get up before then or after?
I think it's possible. There were minimal changes.
But not too much to change here.
Yeah,
It's pretty
no.
good to go, and
Yeah.
and because most of Pat's works.
Well, wait a minute. I
She
think,
glares at him.
Yeah, but it's true.
Yeah.
David, I do have one, just more of a technical question. I assume when you had the blank page, the intent was the blank page is where the address goes.
Yeah. We only need half the page.
Yes.
Okay.
There was, the blank page was just a result of weird importing from Word to Zoho, but,
Well, you have to have some blank, but
yeah, so we have
issue-
3 full pages, and then we can have 1 page for whatever address or whatever else you need.
half a page has to be for address, but the other problem is the way it's typed, the explanation is on the back of the address, and then the other 2 pages are there, but if the explanation to be page number 1, you can't have the address on the back of page number 1, because then 2 and 3 come after that.
This
So
is true.
we'll have to look at how to rearrange it some.
It could, the first page of the survey could be on the back of page 1. And then the second page, and then the third page would be the one that's got the address and whatever. So when you folded it, when you opened it, it would open to that. You flip it over and you've got the first page of the survey and then the second page of the survey.
Right. Well, besides that, it's gonna look different anyway once is it the section's leaving?
You got a half a page and you could put something,
Just say,
Oh,
short-term rental survey, important,
Yeah,
something, in bold letters or something, you catch.
Yeah.
Not your usual, junk mail, not your usual newsletter
not
either.
throw out.
Yeah.
We need your help.
Yeah, right.
We need your ideas.
Those are, layout questions, which I'm more than happy to have our resident experts work on. Are we good? So shall we give this our blessing and move it along?
Sure.
Lesson?
Yeah. We want to take a
Yeah.
formal action?
No, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's make it formal. I move that we endorse it as it's ended here and move it through the printing and distribution.
Second.
Any discussion? Further? unstated how it's gonna happen, kind of leaning on you, Pat. Because
I can get it.
yeah. Okay, Janice,
Connors,
Aye.
Hunter,
Aye.
Weisberg,
Yes,
Woodworth,
Yes,
Daniel.
and thanks, Dave, for all the time you spent on this.
yeah, good, I like your note. I move that we give ourselves another half an hour to work on the rest of the agenda. We probably have a little bit more time because we had the public hearing first. 3/4 of an hour.
I don't even know where my agenda went.
Order of an one.
3/4.
I think we can do it in 15 minutes, don't you?
Right, we probably have 15 minutes before we run out the end, because I'm not sure when we finish the public hearing, but it's probably about 1:45. You know, in other words, the meeting didn't start until
More than half an
6:15
hour,
or something.
no more than half an hour.
Sounds good.
We're not,
Let's not keep talking about, we're using up those.
oh,
minutes.
let's to vote on it. We're supposed to vote on extensions.
Okay.
Yes,
I didn't hear a second.
I didn't either.
Second?
Okay, Pat seconded.
Okay, Connors,
Aye.
Hunter,
Aye.
Weisberg,
yes,
Woodworth,
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes. I was asked, well, Scott Davis contacted me, suggesting that the planning board might like to be party to our process here with regard to considering short-term rental, how we would deal with it. And I asked them to poll the group to find out, you know, whether they want to be party to the process, and it hasn't happened yet. So something to think about, whether we might like to have the planning board involved, but we might want to, if we are, then the question arises, how would they be involved? And Scott has, like, you know, 4 possible levels, one of which is we're not involved at all, but then it could be involved in various ways. But we could just wait and see whether they're interested before we entertain how. So I'm inclined to say, let us know if you're interested, and we'll think about how we can get you involved. Okay. I hate to say that we should postpone the next item, but
We need more time.
we've got the other 3 to deal with yet. That are not yet. Well, why don't we come back to it?
Yeah.
If we got time.
I think we'll find out.
The water committee has recommended that the trainee for the assistant operator be compensated at 80% of the salary for the time that they're in training. That it would be if they were the assistant operator. And I said that would bring it to the board. It's not, we're looking at it's less than $2,000, which in the water district is a meaningful amount of money. That's about 4% of their budget. Nevertheless, the feeling is that we recall that we authorized last time the creation of this position of operator trainee, and it was still up in the air as to how they would be compensated and to what degree. So rather than give them a stipend or give them, you know, so much an hour, Ben Copley, who works with the Ithaca Water District, Bolton Point, said that what they do is that they have them in their training period paid to 80% of their normal compensation. Of course, they're talking 40-hour week. Here we're talking a very part-time shadowing of the operator.
How many hours are we talking?
That's hard to know. Not a lot. And we're talking about 6 months. is that training period. So the group said, doing as much as possible, they're basically learning as much as possible, and left it up to the chief operator to, determine what that would be, so that they could basically learn the ropes in that 6-month period.
Could they come up with a guess as to an average of between 50 hours and 55 hours, or, I mean,
Well,
is there some way?
they didn't, they opted to recommend instead simply that it be a percentage of the compensation for the period if they were in that position. The assistant operator, and one of the reasons that's the case, but right now it's not clearly defined what the assistant operator's role is compared to the operator. The assistant operator is there to in the event that the operator can't be, but they share the work.
Right.
And like if the operator's away on vacation or whatever, the assistant fills in and does it all. So it's if there's a leak develops, during the day and the operator's not available, the assistant operator is the one who grabs the ball and runs with it. So it can be, it's a lot of responsibility because you're responsible for the system when the operator is not available. In fact, that's the big part of it. You're paying for somebody's availability.
Operator, I'm just, it's kind of, I feel like it might make a difference to me as to, how many hours are they expecting a trainee to need training?
Mhm.
I mean, it's 6 months, but is that 6 months of, 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week? I mean, I have no way of guessing as to how much this is going to cost.
Well, I'll tell you what it's going to cost. It's going to cost 80% of what we pay the assistant operator.
No, she just asked you a question. You
What is
just
that?
answered another
What
question,
is
something
total
different.
cost? You're saying, what does that work out to in terms of the actual compensation per hour? Yeah, that I don't know. And my sense is that neither does anybody else.
Or not even per hour, but just total.
Right.
For the training period, for the 6-month training period.
Right.
I mean, is it possible to put a ceiling on that?
That's what I was wondering, a ceiling or maybe a halfway mark. Let's
Laura
see
has
whatever
her
you
hand.
want.
Laura's going to save us.
Go for it, Laura.
I'm not sure if I'll save you or not, but currently the operators, they really don't get paid by the hour. They get paid so much per quarter. Okay, well, our operator, the main operator, he gets paid in a regular paycheck every 2 weeks. The assistant operators, they get paid on a quarterly basis. There's an amount of the budget divided by 4, and that's what they get. And basically that assistant operator has some duties where they have to stop by the pump house. This trainee would be basically shadowing our assistant. Okay. And so as far as the number of hours that they would put in, I'm not sure that would even be established, but they're getting paid more for the responsibility of it. And if something goes wrong, they could put in 2 weeks solid work if something goes wrong in that water district and they are, the assistants. But this trainee is going to learn all about stuff with the chlorine. They're going to learn all about how how it all works and how it all puts together, all the lines, all the, everything. So they're going to he would basically be like, shadowing Todd, if Todd's going to stay on and get this person trained, or he would be shadowing Scott and putting in
working with
time
Scott.
for learning it. So I think it's more of it's a dollar amount, about $4,000 a year, as opposed to saying so much per hour. So if we said that and it was $1,000, so he would get paid $800 every 3 months. Okay.
Would be the most, would be
Basically
like
getting
$1,600.
$265 a month.
Yeah.
So it's not like we don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, it's gonna be like
percent of a
$266.
salaried amount, which is $4,000 a year. So you're not looking, and you're looking at 6 months of it, which is $2,000.
Right, that's the question I was
Yeah.
asking, but I
Okay.
just looked up myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, like $265 or $275 a month is what this person, if we were to really break it down for their commitment and for what they're doing to get in there and learn this system and, learn so that they can be more independent with their tasks and their duties.
This is a lot of responsibility for very little money.
Yeah, I
Right.
know, I move that we,
Is there a resolution?
Is there what?
is there a resolution?
No, it's easily not done. The,
Well, we need to move that the compensation for this,
We-
the operator trainee will be set at 80% of the salary of the assistant operator.
yeah, we agreed to do that, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy to second that.
Can we just say not to exceed
Ah.
a certain dollar amount, just so that down the road, if the training position changes, we're not suddenly paying someone full-time wages for a year at 80%.
Well, I mean,
So it's like $2,000.
the intent was,
$2,000.
this is unprecedented. I mean, in the past, the trainee essentially had 6 months where they were learning the job on their own and not being compensated for it.
I understand
Right,
the reason for it.
Half
I'm
of
just
that
hesitant
to-
to approve funding that has no limit.
80% of $2,000.
Here.
1,000.
It's 80%. Well, no, it's 80% of 2,000, because look at 6 months, not 4.
Right, for the whole year, it's $4,000
Right.
for.
So for 6 months, it's going to be,
So half of that, if it's gonna be 6 months,
Yeah.
so it's like $2,000, $2,025, 80% of that
yeah.
is about 600.
Right.
So maybe just say not to exceed.
Yeah,
Well, aren't we talking about one job? We're not setting a precedent for all assistant or on-the-job people in Danby from now until the future.
No, what we are doing is setting a precedent for operator trainees
Right.
in the
In the water,
future.
in the
Yeah.
water district of West.
Right.
Is exactly
Really
so.
specific.
But specific for that position,
Right.
operator trainee, setting it as 80% of the assistant operator's salary.
Right.
So that as that changes over
Right.
we
time,
have to change.
the amount will
Yeah,
also
it'll
change, but
Right.
it'll still be 80% of whatever that ends up being.
Right, so it's pretty capped, pretty
Yeah,
carefully
and
capped.
and of course, the committee and the board could always revisit it
Right.
if circumstances change radically.
Okay,
If salaries change, that could be changed at the exact same time.
right, right,
Okay.
right.
Right.
It should be added to the salary list.
Well, it's in it's in a percentage right now.
And we still don't,
Right.
of
Of whatever
course,
the salary is.
right. And this is all awaiting, although you maybe got that clarified at this point, Laura. Good. It was before we could actually hire him as a trainee, we had to have the category changed from competitive to
Right,
non-competitive.
right.
And that was something that was being pursued. And where are we on it?
Well, what I'm doing is I'm waiting to hear back from Erin. Hopefully I'll hear from her tomorrow from Civil Service. I know that we had asked her and she's so good about everything. I'm sure she's petitioned the state at this point, if not ready to do that, just to be able to make it a non-competitive, that position that was in another municipality, make it non-competitive. But she will tell us how to proceed to go ahead and make a provisional appointment for that trainee until this comes on. She'll show us what to do. She'll let us know what to do, and I'll keep you all posted, but we'll do whatever we have to do to get it moving as quickly as possible for his payroll.
Because he just did the training, with a multi-day thing that he had to do, and he finished it Friday, so he could be hired yesterday.
Yes, and also our other positions there are non-competitive. So now all of a sudden we've picked something from another municipality that is competitive in a trainee basis, and it's just changing that word to non-competitive, and it's something that we have to petition. But we'll see what, I'm sure that there's a way that we can get going with it. And he'll fall within a category until that petition clears. Because those can take a long time sometimes. You can
Yeah.
wait a lot of months to get a reply back from the state on that stuff, unless they, sharpened their system up from the last time we had to do anything like that. I shouldn't say sharpened up, changed their system or moved it forward.
So should we say not to exceed $2,000?
If you want to, I mean, I don't think, I personally, I
It
think
won't be that much.
it's undesirable to put a cap in there because it's
Right.
already capped by what the current salary is for the position.
Yeah, I would rather not put a cap. on
I would
it.
rather
And
not.
then it- and then
We'd
it
have to
floats-
put and put in another resolution next year if we were to ever have that, because next year that person will get a raise. And so then if anybody were to come in there and do that training position, it would be more than $2,000 for a 6-month period.
Right.
We'd have to come back to it if we didn't.
You have to keep coming back to it.
Percentage, it has it move with the
Right.
adjustment in the
Right.
assistant operator.
But what I'm also hearing is that it's not exactly what I was thinking, because it's not just following around the assistant operator, it's also going to trainings.
That's separate.
Well,
So that's-
that's separate and we
yeah,
already,
separate.
we already paid for that.
Okay, but we paid him for that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
He
mean,
did
just
that on
like-
his own time.
Not just the 6 months
Yeah, that was,
hours of the assistant operator.
no, he had to go
Additional
through like
thing.
3 days of training.
Yeah.
And then they need on-the-job experience, basically, where they shadow the operator,
Right, I got
the
that.
assistant operator, in order to get familiar with the specifics of this
Right.
system.
Right.
So that they
Okay.
can jump in and up and run it if they need to.
Is the requirements of the job, Steve, for him to, fulfill the requirements to become the plant operator? They have the same title, but we just know one's an assistant, one's not. Is that 6 months of hands-on experience? So
Right.
after 6 months. But I mean, if you wanted to set a cap, you could set it at 3,000, 3,500. Take a long time to get up to that point. With any types of 2% raise on 4,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay, so, the motion was that we, approve the recommendation that the compensation be 80% of the assistant operator's, salary for the training period. And I forget who made it, who seconded it. I did one of the, I don't remember which, but I presume it
He
captured that.
seconded it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now we're ready to vote on it.
Okay, Connors,
Aye.
Hunter,
Aye.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes,
Daniel.
Yes. All right, the South Point subdivision public interest order for the drainage district #1 needs to be rescheduled because we did not include the text of the resolution, which is fairly lengthy. It'll be fairly expensive posting, but we could reschedule this as soon as our next meeting. However, Dave's going to be away.
yeah, that's not a good idea.
It's not pressing.
But in
might make
addition,
more sense.
noise thing is next week. I'd rather not have something else up with a noise.
On the 19th.
Yeah.
So why don't we reschedule this to the, was it May 2nd meeting? So I move that we do that. Schedule a public hearing on the South Point subdivision, public interest order, drainage district 1
I'll second that.
for May 2nd at 6 o'clock. Any discussion? Okay, Janice?
Connors,
Aye.
Hunter,
Aye.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes,
Daniel.
Yes. Let's see. Oh, yes, threat assessment team, workplace violence threat assessment team report and goal setting.
I can read
The
it really
committee did
fast.
read, the committee did meet and does have some,
I can read it really fast.
we didn't get a copy of it?
No, because I had sent it along and said we could have posted it, not had to bother with it, but I didn't. No, we didn't do that. It's short.
yes, go ahead.
It's a matter of if I can see it. Okay. WPVAT convened at 10 a.m. Wednesday, March 29th. The members, Laura, Steve, Courtwright, Tyler, Jordan, Catherine Hunter. Laura Shelley has accepted our wish for her to chair the team. We discussed ideas, redirection for the team. We do wish to add another member, possibly from another board or council, possibly from the planning board, question mark. These are just thoughts. This is what we did. We believe that we are not authorized or licensed or permitted by any legal entity for action regarding incident reports. We do believe that in the event of urgency and threat, the first action should be to lock the doors and call 911. We do believe that the incident report should be directed to the team, not publicly. We do believe that the team should hold and record such incident reports. We believe our responsibilities include review of physical security for offices and staff in the physical plants and the security for our highway crew while they are out on the road. We discussed cell phone and radio communications in that event. Regarding physical safety at the town hall, we will revisit all recommendations made last year with the research help of David McDermott. We will also review safety at highway. And in both plants, we are concerned about issues when only one person is present. We want to review training in physical security, i.e. locked doors, doorbells, the placement of cameras in the event that a doorbell alerted an individual to look at the camera, showing entrances and hallways. We believe that we are a coordinating group who are open to hearing concerns from staff and citizens regarding regarding continuing to create. Well, the idea is to continue to create and maintain respectful, safe environments for where concerns can be presented and discussed. We believe that we should research and consider setting up ongoing training for staff and councils. That's the lowdown.
Something you said in the beginning or early on about the group doesn't see itself as being.
I'll read it to you. That we're not authorized or licensed or permitted by any legal entity for actions regarding. We're not. None of us are.
Yeah, but then later on, it basically said that you will be doing it though.
No, I didn't. I said what we would do is we would try to find training. We would
Collect the incident report.
collect the incident report.
Yeah. So then who then is responsible for responding to the incident reports? It's not going to be.
That's where we got. That was part of our discussion. To ask anybody who's not legally in authority to either become a therapist, a police officer, ambulance driver, or any medical person, we can't do that. It became a topic for discussion, and then we all looked at each other. I mean, that's what happened to me when I first got on this team. I thought, no problem, this would be interesting. And as soon as you're faced with the real idea, and then when something does happen, nobody's there all the time during the incident, number one. But number two, I'll ask the question, what would you have a member of the threat assessment team do?
Make recommendations.
Well, I mean, what we discovered last year.
Investigate. I don't think that's what I think where we've got stymied. What gives us we could get.
Well, the
Think
question is
about
how we're
it.
going to respond to an incident. You know,
Right.
in last year, it came to light that what we had in place as a policy doesn't cover the whole realm of possibilities, because it basically has the quote unquote department heads in a position of responding to an incident. And it didn't imagine the situation where it might be the department head, him or herself, that's feeling threatened.
Yeah.
And then what? You know, who do you report to? You know, and then how does it get dealt with? And it does make sense, I think, to have the response be from the team.
Agree. I think that's what I.
I'm not talking about, you know, at the moment, if there's an emergency situation, I think, you know, dialing 911 is the appropriate thing to do. but lock the door, call 911. But, you know, after the fact, you know, when a report's filed, how do we respond to it? You know, what do we do to address the situation that caused it to arise so that we don't have it happening in the future? You know, whatever the appropriate response is whose job is that? You know, shouldn't it be the committee?
I'd like you to think about that and come back to us with some ideas. I don't think it's as simple as that.
Well, it's not necessarily simple,
No.
but I think maybe it ought to be on the agenda for the group. The group
I'll just put it,
and come back.
Can I say something?
Recommendation.
there, Laura.
Can I just mention it? You know, there's a lot of things that we have around here for safety. And there are there are different groups. I guess one of the things that during the meeting, what we had come up with is that we need more direction. We need more guidance. Okay, let's say somebody puts in an incident report. Somebody says, like what just recently happened with Janice, where she puts in a report. None of us on that team are really qualified to really make that decision. Is there really a threat? And if there is really a threat, what do we do with it? But we need to search out some companies, some different places that can help us to put together, because of course, the number one thing is we wouldn't want anything to happen to anybody. But the other thing is that if somebody submits a report like that to us and we don't recognize it as a threat, we could put it in the file. We could, whatever it is we're going to do with it. And then if something bad happens, the town's liable for that. We're a committee. So we have to get some direction on what the proper thing is to do to have a proper threat assessment team. What are the procedures that we go through and what do we do? And I'm not sure that anybody on that team really knows the true answer about that. So we need
but you wouldn't be adverse to investigating and making recommendations for how to do what we should do about that.
Exactly. And that's where we need the guidance. We need the guidance on that. We need time frames. How quickly should we be responding to something like this? What are the things? What are the legal ramifications for something like that? Because they do exist. And if somebody were to get hurt, somebody were to really get hurt or be in a threatening situation that we don't totally know, we're not qualified to maybe assess ourselves. Yes, I definitely feel that the threat assessment team is the place for someone to file a complaint like that or to report an incident. But we need to know where to go with it from there, what to do, what are our legal responsibilities, how do we react to that? Is there someone that we go to say, what do you think about that? What do you think about this? What's your recommendation of what we do? Because we don't know. I mean, I've never been in this line of work before. None of us have. So, okay, just so
are you okay with
or we just keep it on file because the person might say to us, no, that's all right. Let it go for now. I just wanted to let you know about it. There's legal ramifications to an answer like that. And we need to get a little bit more advice. We need more advice. So we're going to try to find out where to get that advice. That was really the main topic. That's what we discovered in our meeting.
Yeah, but you're okay with having the committee, you know, call it committee, charged with investigating those things and basically coming up with an appropriate way to respond, which is what we're missing right now. Yeah.
Yes, we feel that that's one of the things.
I'd like to actually be really clear about that word investigating. I think what I got from when we were talking is we would like to investigate where to get help learning how to do that, not necessarily investigating each incident.
Yes, I agree.
I agree. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But being clear.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, you made that clear.
Sense was that you are not now positioned to do it, but we need to figure out what we need to do in order to have in place an appropriate response, you know, system, if you will.
All right. I mean,
We're more the coordinators of this, and getting really good advice from someone else and making sure we're doing everything legally, as well as, of course, number one, making sure we respond properly for people who feel threatened in some way.
Okay. Next meeting,
You think
maybe we
maybe.
can dig up some.
Well, I mean,
was that what you're talking about us for next meeting? No, she's talking about the setting up
Coming
the.
up with coming up with I mean, the first thing I.
I think that might be a little bit quick.
I think that's quick too.
I think it's a little bad. You're asking a lot to have that the next 2 weeks.
I don't think we need to insist on our next meeting. I think it should just come up
We
later.
get to shoot for next meeting, we
Well-
should try.
Well,
The first thing I want to do is like talk to Matt and the person who helped set that whole thing up. What do they say? You know, what do they, what's the structure? Do they, what
Well, that was,
structure
yeah,
do they see for the threat assessment team? They're the ones who came up with that.
well, actually, what we've got was pretty much based on what Gina recommended in the report.
Well, who?
Gina,
Right,
I forget her last name.
yeah. So, I mean, maybe.
But, so I don't think there's a whole lot
we've
of
been
thought
doing
given to it.
And now
Yeah.
questions have come up, we should be able to, ask Gina or Matt, for help with this.
that is what we were talking about, asking for help, but I don't know that we could come up with and I'd like it if you all had ideas and you wanted to send them to us, so we'd have, the more input for thoughts on it. And that's what we were referring to as being coordinating to try and find out where we can get advice.
I have no idea. But I think that it's important to find out.
Yeah, so,
So basically, I think, the group is charged with figuring out, who to ask,
Yeah.
where to go. And I think it might even be appropriate to say, if necessary, consult the town attorney.
Good.
Because I'm sure that, when it comes down to legal liability, he's the
Good, yeah.
right person to ask.
Yeah.
And he may know, who to ask,
Yeah,
or, where the right sources of information lie.
okay.
So is that enough of a directive to start for,
what do you think, Laura?
is that, Madam Chair, is that clear enough, the indication of what is expected from the group? Yeah, that's you, Laura.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to hear. Yeah, I know I had my phone ringing here on the other side. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you're saying that we would just come back and report what we're finding. I think that there's some places that we can go. I think some other municipalities may even have some of these teams.
Yeah.
Some things that if we
It's
so
really mandated for everybody. Others may have to,
recreate the wheel.
we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No,
We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have some sources that we can go to and try to find out this information. And if anybody else wants to look into it and has some thoughts and ideas, that's great.
Okay, sounds good.
okay.
All right, so, that brings us back to the list, goal setting, which we're out of time. It would be nice to take a look at that though. Maybe next time,
Yeah,
maybe we can put it higher on the prior, it should probably migrate to the top, right? Because
Yeah.
things on the bottom should move to the top.
sure.
Although
Sounds good.
we'll have to spend some, we might want the first order of business to be that, well, we'll have that public discussion before we get into the agenda anyway. So that works for me. I have all the things we talked about putting on the agenda next time, I
Yeah.
made note of them. Is there anything else that, you can think of that we could
We've got all the things.
add that we haven't talked about or otherwise dealt with? Things will come up, as they always do. One of the things I was thinking about is that I should have, but I didn't think to do it, solicited interest in mowing the town property, because of the mowing season starts in May.
Right,
I might just I did this a couple of years ago. I could put an ad in Craigslist soliciting interest
yeah,
and see what we get.
that's a newsletter. Yeah,
Well, yeah, except that they won't be out until May,
right.
which is awfully, we should be mowing by then. So,
Really?
yeah, usually around the first week of May is first mowing. So if we wait until the first May meeting we could if I act quickly, we could have proposals that we could act on at the first May meeting, which is May 2nd.
Yeah.
And then people would have a go ahead to start almost immediately,
I
basically.
mean, would it be off the wall to put it on? Yeah, it would be, never mind.
On that half page in the survey.
No, I know, I was.
I actually thought about sticking a note in that too, but I didn't know.
No.
We don't want to do that. We can put something on the website.
Love
Yeah,
that
put it on the
Facebook page, I
Yeah.
just love it.
Yeah,
Danby
yeah, the
South
Danby
Road
South
Facebook
page.
page. And lots of
Yeah,
people
right,
put-
right.
Put things in there, but it would probably not be a good idea. Anyway,
Well, we could
Just put
we-
Dan.
we could do that, couldn't we?
From lawn mowing.
I don't know, it's kind of,
it's an advertisement, basically.
well, other people do that too, who can,
Yeah, they
you
do.
know, but. I
Well,
don't
maple syrup for sale. I mean,
You
like,
could,
Russ
yeah.
is doing prominently, so I
you
mean,
could ask, somebody could ask Steve Sealand, it would be all right.
what to mention it is,
Huh?
oh, okay, that's right, he's the moderator.
He's a moderator.
So the website certainly,
Yeah,
and I think Craigslist lasts.
yeah,
And not only that, I can also call people and ask them.
right, right.
With the last time we went through this, the other providers were reluctant to submit quotes because they didn't want to display somebody who's already doing it.
Right,
But that's not how the procurement's supposed to work.
right.
And you recall, we had some difficulties with Dick last time. He was very unhappy that we couldn't pay our bills within 10 days of when he submitted them. The trouble is, it's unrealistic to expect them always to be paid within 10 days. If he just misses 2 days before the board meeting, and then it's going to be at least 2 weeks before we even get it on the warrant to be
Right.
paid, and then it takes a few more days to get
Right.
get a check
Well,
sent out to him, and before he gets it in the mail.
right.
So, I mean, either he needs to adjust his expectations, or I need to ask Guy, because he said, well, one possibility is that you pay half up front, so that he's got half the money, and then you would pay him, the other half as we go along, I suppose.
Really?
If it's part of the contract, we might be able to do that.
Yeah. But I thought we couldn't really do that except for with the utilities. and
Well, yeah, it amounts to, well,
stuff. Anyway,
it's not unusual for
we'll figure it out.
contracts to be, but I can ask Guy, when it basically comes to
But
it.
I mean, put it on,
Yeah.
let's start asking around.
But that's another reason to ask other people whether we might be able to get more realistic terms. Because I kind of like to tell Dick, look, if you're going to deal with the town, this is the way it works,
Right.
30 days.
Well, maybe have that
Expect it within
conversation.
30 days, not
Have that
10.
Conversation with him and ask him if he's still interested.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Because if he's not, we need to find somebody else.
Yep.
I mean, he was.
I've got an enterprising,
He was-
I've got an enterprising 16-year-old in West Danby who's keen. Who's got his own official landscaping business.
Really?
Yeah.
How old is he?
16,
Can we hire somebody that's 16?
I think so. I mean, it's a contract, right? A lot of us have already done that. Contracted with
Yeah,
it.
but I'm thinking of the town.
Yeah.
How old are our
We
lifeguards?
could hire
How old
somebody
are lifeguards?
that's 16. That's a little different.
I know it's young for sure.
It's still a
I mean, this is
contract.
with a machine and I don't know.
Yes, I know.
Anyway, okay,
Um,
yeah, I think so.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
What he said.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Laura.
Laura.
See everybody. Bye-bye.